The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back to Basket Under Review. We have another special edition of Meeting the Conferences, we're calling it. And we're lucky today to be joined by Julie Lach from the Horizon League. And Julie has been with the Horizon League, I believe, since 2014, finishing her fifth year, full year as commissioner, and starting that post in January of 2021. Before that, Julie was with the NCAA enforcement and other roles at the NCAA for 15 years. So obviously a ton of time in Indianapolis. Julie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, just to get you up to speed, we are looking to get a pulse across, this year we still have 31 conferences. We'll go back to 32 next year with the reintroduction of the Pac-12. And I'm running a series throughout the year, both written and visual and audio like today, about the landscape of college basketball. And so Horizon League has been one of my favorite leagues personally.
Me too.
Beautiful. Funny story just to kick it off. I grew up in Seattle, but I was raised a Packers fan. So I immediately started rooting for this small school called Wisconsin Green Bay.
Right.
And I remember in the early 90s, they pulled off an upset in March Madness, and it was probably one of my favorite memories as a kid. And I've rooted for Green Bay. I would still root for Green Bay, if they can, get back to the top. So it's a league that's just been phenomenal. Obviously, we know about the run with Butler for all those great years, the 2 national championship games, and now where we're at today. So I think let's just do a kind of a look back at your experience with the Horizon. Coming from all those great memories, I think so many of us have, especially there locally they have, and where we're at today in college sports and how to continue to have the opportunities to recapture some of that.
Yeah, I'd love to, and we're definitely trending in the right direction. But to your point, I was a Horizon League fan before I became a member of the team. I attended, of course, because I worked at the NCAA, the Butler game here in Indianapolis, where the shot we just waited for Hayward's shot to fall in, but that was incredible at Lucas Oil Stadium, and at that point you just saw it definitely wasn't a Cinderella story. In fact, I read the book, the Cinderella story about Butler's back-to-back runs. But I think even before that, I remember going to watching the championship game when Cleveland State upset Butler in Hinkle. So then both teams got in the tournament that year. But at any rate, I think to your point, the Horizon League has a strong history and tradition of basketball, and that's, as I've now been part of the staff for the last 11 years, when we come together, and especially in today's college football heavy environment, there's such unity around basketball is our primary sport, men's and women's. And I think because of that, we've been able to really move the league forward on both sides with some agreed upon strategies that are good in theory, not always easy in practice. And hats off to our presidents, ADs, and coaches for rallying around some of these strategies to really start to move the league forward.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's an interesting time. I mean, the money in college basketball is the big story. I think when we cover it nationally, you see what some of the kids can earn now if they move up a level or 2 levels. Obviously, I feel like you could even argue there's 7 levels of college basketball budgets right now. That's the way I've broken it down. Because I think within the Power 5, we're getting to a point where there's really a Power 2. I just think with the Big Ten and the SEC, obviously you still have Duke and North Carolina that's at that level from the ACC and some Big 12, Kansas and whatnot. But then you go into the third tier would probably be like, Mountain West, WCC and A10 and American. Then we get into kind of the next cut of leagues that are traditionally now just getting one bid every year. And it's been hard to see from my standpoint because I live and die with the Horizon League level. But I also think there is opportunities there as well. And, so from a strategy standpoint, what are the main things that, in your 5 years there, you guys have strived to do, and how do you stay nimble as things just constantly change? I just feel like 2 years ago we had Florida Atlantic in the Final Four, and it feels like this year that feels so much more harder to do, even from 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. It's certainly not easy. And I think what we've realized is, of course, we would love to have a second team be a part of March Madness. There's also a lot to be said for coming together and ensuring that our league champion has the best possible seed path. And that's what's really helped inform our strategy. So I don't get hung up in one bid league, two bid league. It's more about positioning those who punch their ticket to have a strong seed path. So that comes down to a lot of strategy on scheduling. So we have regulations around non-league scheduling. Thank goodness Kelly Ford's part of our team, and we work with some consultants. And now we've got coaches, I'd say, mostly bought in. Nobody likes it when you get in your business too much, but our presidents, our chancellors, our ADs, they understand that you've got to, one, do a little self-diagnosis. How are you going to be for the year? So we call that our tiering structure. And then that informs your strategy for how you're going to go out and build your non-league schedule so that you've got a strong team sheet and you're battle tested come March. So that's been part one. There's a lot more to it. I'm happy to pause there, or I can keep rolling.
No, let's keep rolling. We love this stuff.
So the other piece then is league schedule. We used to do travel partners, and given our footprint, on the one hand, our states, we've got this tight 6-state, soon to be 7-state footprint in the Midwest with these major cities. But that trip from Robert Morris to Green Bay is a trip. So we've got to recognize that. But what we realized is we don't need to be all travel partners, because that was a little bit of wear and tear on our student athletes. So we flexed a bit, and now we've changed our strategy behind league scheduling, and it's a hybrid model. So you see a preference for a Wednesday, Saturday, and then of course we flex for our TV windows with ESPN, and then we also flex for those outlier trips. So you will see a travel partner, maybe one or two, within the midst of a league schedule, but it's not dominating. So we've created more space and rest time for our coaches and student athletes, which we implemented last year and got really strong praise. The second big pillar is investment. We as a league have put over $1 million, we call it a grant, because it's a strategic distribution. So we dictate a little how our programs spend it, but we've given them improvement grants. They earn excellence grants. And that's back for men's basketball, and now we've done allocated almost $500,000 for women's basketball. So we are putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, from our league reserves, but then our schools are also investing, and we are pretty transparent with financial dashboards, not only from the strategies around it, but what are the correlations on the budget lines to how we see the competitive net, shake out. And then we look at, of course, NIL. We just met as a board, presidents and chancellors, and our ADs met a few weeks before that. We had a very candid conversation about where we are across the league from an NIL perspective, because people like to keep their cards close to the vest, but I think we got to be open about that. Yeah. Where are we, and what's the best information we can get relative to where our peers and aspirants are? Because that's, if we're going to compete regionally and nationally, we're obviously going to be in the mix. And again, our presidents and ADs all agreed to opt in whenever we had to make that decision earlier in 2025, which feels like a decade ago. And now they're off and running relative to, yes, if we're going to opt in, then that means we're going to be paying our student athletes through NIL.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's it's such a separator already. I mean, you could see it, and even, we've had 4 days of college basketball so far. Started on Monday with virtually everybody playing, so we've seen almost everybody play once now. But I think, one thing that jumps out right away is some of the big mid-major upsets that we've seen across the landscape. I think one of the, Robert Morris, shout out to them.
Great win last night.
Big win. They ended a 49-game non-conference home win streak for Drake. So congratulations to your defending champions, the Colonials.
Thank you.
And there's been some other big ones too, and I think some of the commonalities, maybe Robert Morris doesn't fit this perfectly, but there's been some big investments. So, for example, I interviewed Master P yesterday at New Orleans because he's the president of operations for New Orleans basketball. That was a team ranked in the 340s last year.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're beating TCU on opening night. So I think there are these new angles and opportunities through NIL, through different ways you can pull your money together. Because I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is people care about your schools, and how do you tap into that? And there's, everybody's at different stages of that arms race, and I just hope there is a future where these schools can continue to thrive and have the athletes that can compete.
I do think there'll be, well, first of all, Robert Morris has invested, and last year they did from a collective standpoint, and obviously they were a strong team. I just watched them play against Iowa the other night, just on TV, and of course, they're our player of the year. Got some minutes playing for Iowa, which was just ironic. Obviously, they had scheduled that game before he transferred.
Yeah.
But at any rate, and I'm sure there's anecdotal evidence. Who knows what his NIL deal was, but I'm sure it was significant. So, nonetheless, though, I was at the game when Robert Morris almost upset Alabama, and they played so well. And they obviously had an incredible fan base there because it was in Pittsburgh, just down the road from their campus. And the amount of momentum gained. I went to the pregame, the postgame events. You could just see the rallying point that created for their alums. And their athletics director, Chris King, and their president, Michelle Patrick, sees that opportunity. And they have secured more investments, if you will, when it comes to their basketball program and NIL for this season. And I think we're already seeing that.
No, it's tremendous. And I actually, funny you brought Robert Morris up. They opened that arena, I believe, the UMPC Event Center. I believe it
Beautiful.
was. It is, yeah. I believe it was right before COVID. It was a very snowy day, and they actually opened it against Pittsburgh. And
Right.
I made the trip all the way out here from the West Coast to be there for opening night. I still have the little towel they gave away, but that place is that place is beautiful, and
It is beautiful,
and they can get that thing rocking. Their students care a lot at least when they're competitive.
And I've heard about that game, of course. Also, when they hosted the quarterfinal game of the Horizon League Championship in 2025, that they had a sellout. And that's same deal. It was just the energy and enthusiasm, because the team, I was at an early game in December, last so it would have been December 24, and obviously they were still building and figuring things out as a team, and then they just kept, Coach Andy just kept bringing the team along, and then you see where they were at the end of the season, and to have a sellout just to punch their ticket to come to what we call the Horizon League Final Four here in Indy, where March starts here. But that was. You're right. That's an incredible facility, especially when it's packed.
No, it's phenomenal, and I hope the program keeps growing. It looks like they had to replace their top 7 players, I think, this year, and they went out and because of their their NIL advancement, I think you can see already they're ready to rock this year. And I help with scheduling across the country, throughout the non-conference. So I'm really glad that you mentioned Kelly Ford. He's become a really good friend, and I love all the work he does. I think. I can tell you this: teams were not exactly signing up to play Robert Morris this year, so it was good they got that Iowa game done early. They might not have got it later in the process after the portal was finished.
Right.
So on the point of Robert Morris, it brings me to kind of the big topic throughout the summer for us, which was the basically the confirmation without the final version of what it's going to look like. That the NCAA tournament will expand to 76 teams. And I guess I'll just start it vaguely, and then we'll jump into the details. What does the Horizon League prefer in terms of expansion? What's the opinion, or are you just along for the ride because you can't jeopardize anything?
Well, we just talked about this. Well, the short answer is I'm not supportive, and as a league, we've not taken a vote, so I can't say the Horizon League. But I can share with you that we had this conversation. Our presidents asked the question, and you mentioned Kelly Ford. He and I did a bit of a deep dive on some analysis and the what if, and I'm going to answer this question from two prong. I do care about obviously the strength of the overall college basketball game. And I recognize that if we can add more inventory, because the first four is such a special time, if we add another, expand that notion still within the same calendar, is that good for college basketball? I think that's the right question to be asking, and I
Sure.
like the fact the analysis is happening. So out of the box, I wasn't, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. I was like, this is worthy of exploration. Obviously, it's got to make financial sense because the NCAA is going to have to get a lot of extra money for those extra games to pay for the added expense because it's a lot. But beyond that, I think you have to ask the question, and I think that most people, not everybody, Dan Wilkin's written some, I think, powerful pieces on this, but
Yeah.
I think you've got to ask the question of how does this affect the magic of March Madness? So I'm just going to answer that question from the Horizon League lens. In 2025, based on our analysis, Robert Morris, they were obviously a 15 playing the 2 seed Alabama. If we had the expansion in place, they would have first had to play another 15 seed Montana, likely, and then they would have had to win that, and that probably could have been out west. And then they would have had to turn around 2 days later and play Alabama. Now,
Correct.
they gave such a great game to Alabama. My phone's blowing up with 5 minutes left when they take the lead. We almost had an Oakland experience, which I'm going to talk about them in a second. But my point is, I don't think just asking any team, but let alone that you're at a disadvantage coming in as a 15 seed, but to have played 2 days prior across the country and then travel and expect them to give the game they gave to Alabama, I don't think that's realistic. Now we'll go to everybody's favorite game, and I've continued to hear about this. Oh, that Oakland, Kentucky game. Yes, it was amazing. Like, that is the magic of March Madness, right?
Yes.
And then they almost upset NC State. So it wasn't as if they weren't ready, battle tested to be there, as Greg Campy has said many times, and I agree. But so they're the 14 playing 3 seed Kentucky. Under this expanded format, they would have been a 15 seed. So that means they would have had to then be playing a 2 seed. Then you don't even see that matchup. And then you don't even see that historic moment. And then you don't even see this incredible exposure that Oakland garnered from that 2-hour commercial on CBS that crashed their institutional website, which is what I and fellow commissioners at our level use when we talk about this is the return on investment of being a strong Division I college basketball program. So my concern is we dilute it so much that you lose some of that. Not all of it. I'm not going to be dramatic. March Madness is still going to be awesome if we expand it. The sky's not going to fall. But from, I think, some pretty compelling examples, and I could go into 2023 if you want me to, because I was there when NKU was given a game to Houston.
Yeah, that's right.
But again, they would have been a 16 seed, which they were, and they would have had to play a first game against another 16 seed, and then turn around and play Houston. And are they going to be able to give them a game 48 hours after playing another game that they would theoretically be battling to win? So that's my concern. I think that we're glossing over the negative impact on what we all have come to love, which is that magic of March Madness.
Well, Julie, you're speaking my language. This is
Preach into the choir.
well, I think Yahoo put out a report. And again, none of this is done and the votes haven't happened, and we're respectful of this not being the end all be all. But I thought it was alarming, and I put a tweet out that had that same analysis or similar analysis to where the cutoff would have been, because effectively 24 total teams have to play an opening round game under the new proposal, the one that's getting the most traction at least. And
Right.
what that means, I'm just recapping what you've already said, but the bottom 12 of the automatic qualifiers, so those, they stack rank all of the entire seed list, which is what I do all year long on
Right.
bracketology. If you're in those last 12 champions, which the ones you just mentioned, the last 3 would have all been in that group, they got to go somewhere and play an opening round game 2 days before, and then it's a coin toss game, first of all.
Right.
So there's certainly no guarantee of getting to Thursday or Friday. And then if you're fortunate and you can get through that game, then you're still, like you said, from a rest, recovery, and peak performance standpoint, at an additional disadvantage. Not to mention, you're going to play against one of the top 8 teams in the nation.
Country, right?
Right. So good luck with that.
Right.
And I think when you do the analysis too, it really is like the Horizon, the CAA. A lot of those leagues probably between 18 or maybe like 16 and 26 that are going to be on that fringe every year. If maybe you'll have a good team that won't have to do that once in a while, but I really think it's a huge deal because again, my love for March Madness starts with the Cinderellas. Honestly, when I'm watching the first round, I'm looking at the calendar to see when the next, if we're watching a set of games and they're all blowouts, we kind of know the favorites are all going to advance. I'm looking at the rest of the day schedule, trying to make sure, okay, well, we still have a 15 versus 2 chance coming up next, so let's stick around and make sure we watch that just in case. And to me, that's the most exciting day. Those 2 days are the most exciting days of the tournament because you just don't know, and I agree. It is heavily impacted by that proposal.
Yes, I agree with everything you said and more, and I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the case study if you need help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it was a compelling conversation in our presidents and chancellors room because they see it at the macro level. I think the other issue is it's not, and this isn't just about the Horizon League or other conferences at our level, creating an even steeper mountain to climb, so to speak. It's really about the health of those games because how competitive is what we now call the first round going to be? If many of those teams walking into those games who are already the David and Goliath scenario, now it's like one arm's behind their back because they just played 2 days before and they might have crisscrossed the country. That's, I know I'm just repeating what you said in a soundbite, but I am concerned about it. And I think you have to really ask the question, why are we doing it? And I've heard, obviously reasonable people can disagree. We have really strong teams that are not earning a spot in the NCAA tournament because you still have the NIT, you have other postseason opportunities. But you know what? I think first of all you have to recognize the AQs that earn that, as you know, and now I've seen it for 11 years. That's a battle. Those tournament champions who are not always the regular season. I think the regular season champions truly are those that have won the battle. But to earn the reward of pulling it together at the end of your season and winning your conference, usually some teams playing 4 or 5 days in a row, they have earned that ability to go represent and have a meaningful opportunity. And I think that's my concern is you take away that meaningful opportunity, if you will, for a lot of the teams that currently have.
No doubt. Yeah, that's perfectly said as well. I think that's a great segue into our next wonderful topic, which is the new and very, edgy, I guess is a good word, Horizon League bracket that came out that will be implemented in 2026. Again, you won't officially be part of the conference at that point, but I'm sure
I'll be a fan.
Yes, you will. Yeah, of course you will. And it's going to be right there in Indy, so it won't be far from
there.
you. You'll be there. To recap, the new format is essentially 5 opening round games that feed into a reseeding process because there is about a 4 to 5 day break until they move on to the 5 teams that, let's just call it the 5 teams that are still alive. And then the reseeding occurs, basically after the games are final, and we know Kelly Ford's there, and it's going to happen quick. But you'll then know who based on the reseeding, the 4 and the 5 will have to play an extra game a day early, and then the top overall seed will get the winner of that game, and then the last 2 teams will be the 2 seed and the 3 seed in a natural semifinal matchup. But I think when people see the bracket, it gave them goosebumps or hair raised up on their spine. I took back myself just for a second, but then I realized, you know what, you got 4 to 5 days to figure out a reseed anyway. Kind of makes sense, and I'll let you comment on it directly, but I think you started hinting at it by saying we need to celebrate the regular season champions more, and this maybe gives them a little bit of an extra edge.
You're right, because you're looking at advancing. I mean, first of all, obviously all teams, 10 and 11 have a tougher road. but then you've got our seeds hosting on campus still on that Wednesday, which we've really, just in terms of the prior bracket, which I really liked as well, the giving the top 4 seeds a chance to host those quarterfinal games, like we were just talking about the Robert Morris sellout. We've had some incredible environments. I mean, Oakland at Milwaukee. It's just been, and our it's I think a movement of excitement because the fans know if our team wins tonight, they're advancing to Indy, and they're in again the Horizon League Final Four. So now it would be the Horizon League Final Five. So we're gonna have to rebrand a little. But at any rate, what we've continued to hear from our coaches since we've now been in Indy. Well, we started in 2020. I should know this off the top of my head. 6 years, right?
Yeah.
The experience that our city, and we have a local organizing committee of 30 community leaders that come together, is a true championship, or in Horizon we call it a major experience. So you've got the hotel decked out, there's police escorts to the games, you have team hosts taking care of them, giving them itineraries, coaches need something from the dry cleaner, whatever it is. We are literally giving them the red carpet experience because we host Final Fours all the time here. We know how to do it. So we've just taken that approach, and that's what the Horizon League Championship is. So our coaches have been saying since year 1, we need to bring more teams here. And we've been saying it's got to make financial sense. And we don't want to take away those games for our top seeds on campus because that's a great way to build fans and frankly generate some revenue for our teams. So it's been obviously you've got interests. So this year we recognize what if, and this was of course Kelly's brainchild, what if we brought, a little bit of walk before you run, what if we brought one more men's and one more women's team here and added some games on Sunday? Because that's also been a bit of a challenge. The Indy fans come out, but a Monday, Tuesday evening, there's a lot of other competing interests, right?
Yeah.
But if we do a Sunday double header and the bracket holds, you could have a 2, 4, 5 games, which I think that's going to be fun. It's going to be really competitive. Mm-hmm. Do it Sunday afternoon. Market it as the family experience, and I think we could get some fans to travel in as well. Because if your teams are 4 or 5, you're going to see a good game. Or regardless, if they're here in Indy, you're going to see a great game because there's so much parity in our league. And then if they win Sunday, obviously, then they advance to the semis. So that's the why. But it frankly really started with our coaches years ago challenging us to bring more teams here, and then us figuring out how to make it make sense.
That's cool. No, I mean, once it kind of got broken down that way, it made a lot more sense to me. And I think also just given the number 1 seed, of course, no rest for the winner going into Monday, that made a lot of sense to me. And you're not wrong. Like I've been dying to get to your tournament for years, but I live in Oakland, California. I'm right in the heartbeat of WCC with 3 great teams next to me. And I would get their semifinals the same night every year. So maybe I can come on Sunday. Maybe I can be part of the.
That would be great. I already told staff yesterday that I'm buying tickets. They're like, you don't need to buy. I said, no, I'm absolutely gonna buy tickets. We're trying to generate revenue.
Let's go.
I'll buy you a ticket and you can sit by me if you come on Sunday. I'll be there.
Okay, awesome. I'd love that.
Deal.
Although awesome.
I'm sure you get a media credential. That might be a better seat.
Yeah, but we'll at least exchange pleasantries for sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings me to my next point. So I think one of the more interesting questions is the current state of all postseason play. And, I thought last year's NIT as a whole was the most interesting NIT I've ever witnessed, mainly because in the past the NIT was dominated by either teams, big school teams where you don't know what their motivation level is. Now, if they win a game or two, they typically wanted to win the whole thing, and then we get to the Final Four. We usually have mostly big schools. And every once in a while, we had some cool runs. Like I remember Lipscomb going to the championship not too long ago and whatnot. But now we're at a point where, because of this new Crown tournament, a lot of the big schools got pulled to Vegas. And we ended up with a Chattanooga UC Irvine championship last year. We had all sorts of mid-major representation. But they also implemented this metric called the KNIT, the KNIT, if you will. And that was something I had to educate a lot of fans on because it was new and they didn't do a very good job of kind of explaining to the public what that meant. But basically what it means, just for the audience listening today, is if you finish in the top 125, and it's an average of 5 different metrics, including the net and I think KenPom and others. I had them all listed last year. We'll get to that when we get to February this year. But if you got to be in the top 125 and a regular season champion, then you have an automatic bid. But if you finish like 128 or 130, you're not guaranteed a spot. So it is kind of challenging because you look at, we'll just look at last year's Horizon League as a quick example. Robert Morris wins your regular season, but they were 133 in Kempon, so they were right off that cutoff if they would have lost in the conference tournament. And I don't believe any of the other squads, even though Milwaukee, Cleveland State, and those two in particular had incredible years. So that's the NIT, and then you've got still an opportunity to play in the CBI, which again that can sometimes just be, if you want to play in that, that's a coach's decision. Usually you have a younger team and you feel good that they're going to come back next year, go get some extra play. And then we lost the CIT, an old tournament that Horizon actually used to have a good representation in. So just maybe your thoughts on that whole landscape and how important is it to get more access for postseason spots?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the cut line on the NIT.
Okay.
Big surprise, but that's we still do the calls with the NIT committee members, and
Okay.
feel like you and I are giving Kelly Ford a commercial, but
That's what we're doing. You didn't know that?
He does a great job of bringing the stats there to our committee reps, and Coach Martelli was one of our reps last year, and he's pretty candid. He's like, I don't like the cut line either, guys. So we because we are, and of course we're going to push forward. I understand the need to have metrics, but I think just calling it a cut line and using it in such a rigid way, you're taking away some teams that could make some noise through that tournament. And that to me is not good. In terms of your larger question of what's the overall impact of postseason, I've talked to coaches about this because I've wondered sometimes, why are they spending the money on some of these to play in some of these other tournaments on the men's and women's side, and they've noted it really comes down to where are they as a team. Do they need to afford this postseason opportunity to end the season on a high note, or to have another experience? It's part of their retention strategies. It's not really a recruitment strategy anymore, but I think it's more of, is there a method here to try to give this team another shot to really coalesce and come together? So I understand that, and you got to trust the coach's discretion on that, and then balance it with the cost. But I was skeptical, candidly, of some of these postseason opportunities, but I'm a fan, and of course, the NIT. The history around that. The championship's going to be here in Indianapolis. We're going to be hosting divisions 1, 2, and 3, and the NIT on the men's side here in Indy. It's going to be amazing. All after, of course, crowning the Horizon League champion.
I can't wait. I'm one of those guys that goes to the Final Four for way too long. I think I'm there for 8 days every year. When you combine the convention with the games, with the parties, it's just a lot. And I haven't done an Indy one yet, so I'm really excited to get there. And the fact that the NIT games will be there, that will also be a challenging decision if I should try to go to the games or should I watch with coaches at an establishment. I think there's so many cool things that are going to be going on in your city.
I'll make this easy for you. You should go to the games. They're going to be at Gamebridge, which will be my new place of employment. So you absolutely should go to the games.
You're making these segues so easy, Julie. So why don't you tell us about your new role with the Pacers, Gamebridge, and everything going on there?
So I've worked in college sports for a long time, decades at this point, and I've always, and I still very much believe in college sports. And so when Mel Raines, the CEO of Pacers Sports and Entertainment, who I've gotten to know well just through Indy sports scene, approached me with this. It's an executive VP role with 3 buckets of oversight and just being part of her senior level team. It wasn't on my radar, so to speak, and then I really started to get excited about it because, of course, I'm a season ticket holder for the Fever. Our family goes to Fever and Pacer games, but more importantly, what they do in this community is really amazing. They hosted, of course, the NBA All-Star. I was on the board to host the WNBA All-Star this past July, and it was just a takeover of the city. I went last night to Gamebridge, and they were hosting 600. Their staff hosts this, it's essentially like a Thanksgiving dinner for 600 Indianapolis folks, families who are down on their luck. people living in the area homeless shelters. But my point is, it's more than just basketball for the Pacers and the Fever and Pacer Sports Entertainment. And there's value alignment, and obviously those teams are incredibly exciting right now. And to be a part of what they're building, just too good of an opportunity to pass up.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, it just dawned on me. I'm thinking about all the sports with the Fever. It's pretty obvious with Caitlin Clark and all the excitement. That's pretty clear. You have the Cole Tour like on top of the world. It seems like in the NFL so far this year. The Pacers were in the finals. I mean, what? Maybe we should knock on wood because it feels like.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, feels like this is a peak time. Maybe since the Peyton Manning time, but I don't know what the rest of the city was doing then. I just remember a lot of good years. And that's so exciting. Congratulations on your new role.
Thank you.
And what do you think the future of the Horizon holds now with you stepping away and some changes, of course, coming to the top of the Horizon?
Well, I mean, there are many, like the Horizon is, we've got so many strong leaders, sincerely, you look at our board, we've got 11 presidents and chancellors, and I would say in my 11 years with the league, I've never seen a board more unified. We literally just had meetings a few weeks ago, and of course they're unified on their strategy to find my replacement, but more importantly, again, like their commitment to basketball, their commitment to the holistic student athlete experience and genuinely caring about taking care of our student athletes on and off the court. Like they approved a $500,000 grant a few years ago for mental health. They just really come together. So I think from that standpoint, we've got incredible leaders at the top. Same with our athletics director room, and they have tough jobs. I mean, I think that especially the competitive mid-major AD job, wow, like that they are grinding while also really pushing and pulling at the same time. They're to me they're very inspiring because they also very much care about the student athletes. They just had a tough decision on one of our agendas earlier this week, and that was the question: as well, we're weighing the student athlete interest here with competitive interest. I mean, they get it. And then our coaches room, in particular on the basketball side, we've got some great strong veterans, of course, led by Greg Campy, but Darren Horn, Clint Sargent was really trained under Scott Nagy before he left at Wright State. Bart Lundy, Milwaukee, of course, Andy at RMU. I mean, it's just, we've got really strong folks in our membership who are committed, I think, to a common vision. And then our staff, like they're the ones making me look good. Like they're doing it. And we've got such a talented group with Kelly Ford, Chris Newman, who's our chief operating officer. Like the amount of tenure they bring is really, I think the league is really well positioned. You know, we've moved from 27th rank in net to 19th on the men's side this past year. Our brand metrics that we track, people like you and me care about, all of those are increasing. Our ESPN viewership numbers have increased year over year the last 4 years. So to me, we're positioned now to take the next big step. So I'm excited for whoever comes in to just and put their own touch on it. Like it's not like this is the only playbook, but I think we're really well positioned.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating time when it comes to, you know, realignment and the team. You have Northern Illinois coming for basketball next year and all of their non-football sports. And, you know, hopefully they'll get a chance to kind of focus on building that up. They've struggled, but I think it's obviously an amazing football school and a great brand for the Horizon. And I think part of the reason, you know, you might see an uptick this season is, have you watched IU Indy yet? This is like the most exciting. I mean, obviously we didn't
I'm becoming a believer in the system, as it's called, right? The system.
The system. They're playing Butler this weekend, and
right.
We have a diehard Butler person on staff, but I think he's going to be very nervous that night, as he should.
Put up some points. 102 against Ohio State.
102.
Their average is 96 right now.
Yeah. And honestly, the LIU game was a tremendous game. LIU is the unanimous pick to win the NEC. So losing to them by 4 is certainly nothing to hang your head about, especially where IU Indy has been. This is just one of the premier stories in mid-major basketball. You look at what Detroit did last year, and I think the other one, you know, Green Bay, Gottlieb's trying everything he can to get them rolling. That's the key. The bottom is the key to any league, because, you know, you have a lot of quality at the top. So,
Right.
well, Julie, thank you so much for your time. This was
Thank you.
tremendous. Honestly, we talked about more cool things than I could have even guessed. So thanks for your time,
That's good.
and I'll make sure to stay in touch with you when I can make it out to Indy.
I look forward to seeing you at the Horizon League Championship, and then again for the Final Four weekend here in Indy.
That sounds great.
I'll
Have a
hold you
great
to
rest
it.
of your day.
Thank you. All right.
Appreciate it.